Hello, my name is Rolasiah Triplet, and I know you guys are probably wondering what I will be speaking about today and why I chose to speak about this topic. Well, I will be speaking about how children with autism are treated within schools. I chose to speak about the topic because in today's society, we don't realize how we treat individuals with disabilities in our community. For starters, autism, also known as autism spectrum disorder, is a serious development disorder that impairs the ability to communicate or interact with others. Autism spectrum disorder impacts the nervous system, which causes difficulties with behavior and psychological development of children. That's why you often see autistic children have inappropriate social interactions, poor eye contact, compulsive behavior, difficulties with social interactions, or persistent repetition of words or actions. But enough of all the factual information, and let's get straight to the point. That is, why do students constantly tease, manipulate, or even mimic students with autism? Also, what humor is found within the autism disability? I don't understand how a child with autism will have an outburst because they're overly excited, extremely mad, or even sometimes out of their control. And students around them will begin to laugh, mumble under their breaths, or even mimic the child with autism because they found it to be humorous. But why? Why do we as a society find humor within the autism disability? Also, why do we think it's okay to publicly humiliate a child with autism? For example, I have a student in my gym class who is autistic, but although he has this disability, he still comes to gym full of energy every day. But one day we were playing a game of dodgeball in the big gym, and I was sitting on the benches as a student with autism came darting toward the ball that was going past. And suddenly another student who was out took the ball, picked it up, and threw it in the opposite direction, and looked at her friends and began to laugh. All the student with autism could say is why. Why would you do that? This is an example of how society today would rather humiliate and dehumanize children with disabilities instead of being encouraging and supportive to a child with autism. Why couldn't a student who is out simply just pick up the ball and give it to the student with a disability instead of taking it and throwing it in the opposite direction? Think about it. Think about if that were you. How would you feel if someone did that to you? Furthermore, another example would be the movie Wonder. Wonder is a New York Times bestseller which tells the incredible and inspiring story of August Pullman. August Pullman was a 10-year-old boy who had facial deformity. This deformity held him back from going to school until the 5th grade. Then when he finally went to school in the 5th grade, he was teased by his students. They would say things like, "You have the face of a monster," or "You're ugly," or "Look at his face." But why? Why don't we as a society teach children that there are individuals in this world that are different? And instead of teasing those who are different, comfort them and realize that they are just as human as you are. But then there's others who will gracefully speak and be nice to children who are autistic because they don't mind that they are different. They realize that although they have disabilities, children that are autistic or any type of disability are just as human as you and me. I know you guys have probably heard of the golden rule. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. This rule goes for everyone, regardless if they have a disability, different race, different religion. It doesn't matter because all in all, we are all human. On the other hand, I know you guys have probably heard of the names Bill Gates, Albert Einstein, Thomas Jefferson, yes, our third president, Sir Isaac Newton, Jerry Seinfeld, and Andy Warhol. But I bet you didn't know that all of those famous individuals fell somewhere on the autism spectrum, although some are not confirmed yet. For example, the most famous scientist and mathematician in history, Albert Einstein, was autistic. He had trouble socializing, and especially once he got older. He also experienced several speech delays, and he had a habit of repeating sentences to himself. Even though Einstein had these troubles, he was still incredibly technical. In addition, I know you guys have probably heard of the famous artist Andy Warhol, but what you probably didn't know is that Andy Warhol also was autistic. Andy Warhol was known for his autistic work and his constant repetition between his pictures. There was also evidence that he had verbal dyslexia, which is common for people on this spectrum. But once again, although Warhol had autism, he still didn't let it get in his way of his success. In conclusion, this goes to show that a person can have a disability and can be just as successful as an ordinary person. We as a society should focus on uplifting children with autism instead of finding their actions to be humorous. Times change, people change, so now it's time to have a change that comes from within. Thank you. Hello,